In this video program, Mike Lipinski hunts the alpine basins in northwest Montana. Mike has harvested 16 bull elk with his bow and will share his rather unorthodox hunting techniques with us. Mike's hunting adventures have been widely published in various outdoor periodicals. His latest book, a companion to this video, entitled Radical Elk Hunting Strategies, Secrets of Calling Elk in Close, has just been released.
That sound like the same bull. I think we should go and kill it. Now there's a bull right below the timberline. You follow that creek bottom, you see that first opening right below the timberline. There's a bull elk down there. He just answered my bugle. Now you're going to find the bull elk right along that strip of timber by the openings. He's bugled about 6 or 7 times. He's obviously interested. But in the morning, wind currents are going down. We're going to have to actually get down the creek bottom, go past him, circle and come back up. Coming down on him, and the downwind side is a good way to chase him away. He's bugled. He sounds real deep. I think he's a bachelor bull, and I think that we can get in on him. We're going to make just a mad dash right down there before the sun gets in there. If the sun gets too hot in these warm September days, the bulls will quit bugling and bed down by 9 o'clock. So we're in a race against time to get down there and get into that bull. There's another bull bugling over here, and we may have to wait for another hunt for him. And you see there's dapple sun through the trees. The sunbeat is here. We're early season elk hunting. We're talking like 75, 80 degrees today. And I found this kind of weather, you got to get in here in the dark early, that first hour, hour and a half, and that last hour before it gets dark. When it gets cloudy and cool, they'll bugle all day sometimes. This is hot season, and you can see what happened. This bull has probably bugled 15 times, just going crazy. All of a sudden, sun hit up here, it's like he's not even here. And this is a small basin, he's got to be here. He's here. He's just not bugling, he's bedded down, probably got cows, I think it's a herd bull. We'll probably come tomorrow morning. He was just bugling about every 3 minutes first thing in the morning. We'll get up on him tomorrow morning, we'll move in on him while he's bugling, we'll confront him. We have some natural barriers here for him to escape to. There's some places like these steep rock bluffs. We're going to push him up to there, possibly, and he'll stop, and then he'll come and try and rout us, thinking we're just another elk. He's going to kick us out of there. Then we'll get him. That's the only way you can get that herd bull. Otherwise, if he can, he'll keep on going forever. And a casual walking elk can outwalk a man anytime. 80% of elk hunting is locating the elk. It's really important when you're hunting not to be looking for elk. That's the value of scouting and planning, is knowing where to go before you ever get there. This is big country. You can come out here and hunt for 2 weeks without ever seeing or hearing an elk if you're not hunting an elk habitat. One of the best ways I've found in a strange drainage, and this is a strange drainage to me. I've never hunted here before. Come in, and you go up to the subalpine area, which is where the timber starts hitting all the bald side hill. That's called subalpine. The elk like to live there. They come in the openings and feed, drop down the timber, and that's where they bed down. One of the best areas when you go into one of these basins, look for mountain lakes. Just look on a topographical map and you'll see mountain lakes. Up where we were was a mountain lake, and this area here has 2 mountain lakes. There's prime habitat, there's water, there's shelter, and always, no matter how dry it is, the forage is best. That's one quick way that you can move into a strange area and find prime elk habitat. There's hundreds and thousands of elk habitat acres here, and there's millions that aren't elk habitat. Elk don't like to live where it's not prime elk habitat. Sure, you're going to find some even close to roads and close to highways. There's always a few smattering, but the heavy concentrations where the bulls really bugle is right up here in the prime elk habitat. Look for the mountain lakes, look for subalpine basins. Most genuine sounding elk bugles consist of a diaphragm, a mouth diaphragm, and a grunt tube. A mouth diaphragm is nothing else than a takeoff from the old turkey call. In fact, before they started manufacturing authentic bull elk bugling diaphragms, that's all I used was turkey calls, and my friend still does. I just buy these because they're easier to find right now. And this is a diaphragm. It's a mouth diaphragm. It is just almost identical to the turkey diaphragm call. It's just very thin latex inside, and there's a mouthpiece. You put it on the roof of your mouth. Now, it's not going to stay there by itself. You put it in your mouth, and your tongue comes up underneath and pushes it up against the roof of your mouth. That's all there is to it. Remember, this is not a reed. It's not like you're calling a duck call or a predator call where you just blow into it and go squeal. It doesn't work that way. What it does is you just exhale breath out of your mouth between your tongue and this diaphragm vibrates violently, and that's what creates this sound. That's all the noise you're making. Now, what's this? It's called a grunt tube. It's nothing but a hollow tube. Now listen, I'm going to try to bugle with this mouth diaphragm without it. Not much there, is there? But listen to this bugle after I put the grunt tube up to it. It adds a hollow resonance, which is just really identical to what a bull sounds like. That's the big difference. I think there's probably more paranoia about elk bugles than anything else concerning elk hunting. Men just have a great inferiority complex about this thing. They think that they never can make the right elk call. They know the perfect 3-note elk call. Well, I think somebody should tell the elk, because most of them don't make it that way. Yesterday morning I was just bugling a bull that if you ever heard it, you say that's not an elk. That's a donkey brain. It was something like it sounded ridiculous. It was a big old herd bull is what it was. I had an instance many years ago. I had never killed an elk. I was in northern Idaho. I walked up this old logging area. I bugled, and I heard the most tinny sound, and I thought, that fool, there's another bow hunter in here in the middle of nowhere, and he doesn't even know how to bugle. Well, he knew how to rake his antlers pretty good, because after about 5 minutes he was raking his antlers about 50 yards away from me, and I realized, whoa, wait a minute, he don't sound good, but he looks good, and it was a real bull elk, and it was that herd bull. I totally just left his herd and come right after me, and I ended up killing him, and it made me realize then and there, fortunately, that elk come in all sizes, all shapes, and all sounds. Bow hunter in the West after elk has got 2 emergencies he has to deal with. One is with himself, and one is with a dead elk. And that's why I carry this fanny pack. It leaves my shoulders free, but yet I've got everything in here to deal with
emergency for myself or the emergency of taking care of a downed elk. Believe me, if you've never had to take care of it, it's an experience that you'll never forget. They're huge animals. They're big enough on the hoof. Once they're dead, you can't hardly even roll one over. I mean, they're that big. And you've got to somehow save that meat in weather like this. And I've done it a lot of times, and I've never lost an ounce of meat because I carry this fanny pack. In this fanny pack, I carry heavy-duty game bags. They'll carry a quarter of an elk. And you put the elk in these and you just hang them up. Hang them in a tree in the shade. It's about 60 degrees right now, and the shade is probably 50 degrees. That's plenty cool to keep an elk during the day. Also, elk are big animals. You need a couple of very sharp, top quality knives. Elk hair dulls knives very quickly. You need a game saw. Cut through brisket, cut antlers off, cut legs off. Just general cutting up on the elk. You need some cord for tying quarters, for spreading the legs apart. Okay, and here's a second knife. Really, to take care of an elk, that's all you need. But you got to have them. 4 game bags, 2 sharp knives, a game saw, and some cord, and that'll take care of any elk, and you'll never waste any meat. Now, the rest of this is personal. This is vital. It's marking ribbon. It's fluorescent orange. You tie it, you kill an elk, the first thing you do is put 4 big pieces of this ribbon up as high as you can get. A lot of the West is big country, and it's once you get in there, it's very brushy, and a lot of it's dense, and it's very difficult to find an elk once you've packed out the first quarter. If you think you're just going to go back up on one of these huge ridges and find your elk, unless there's some landmark, you're not going to find it. Usually there isn't a landmark. You make your own. About every 50 or 100 feet, as I'm hiking away from that elk hill, I'm using orange ribbon to mark my way in and out. It's very vital. It's also a good place for you to mark where to leave a trail when you're going in the dark or something, or where to find a trail so you don't get lost. Now I got some personal things. Flashlight, little mini pen light, and you just, nothing to carry. You can't do without it. You don't know it. You may kill an elk the last 10 minutes of light, and you're looking at gutting it out and field dressing it and hanging it 2 hours into the dark. This little baby will last, and it's very light. Bring some food. You never know what's going to happen. Some pop, candy bars, health food, whatever you want. I've got a space blanket too. If I broke a leg and had to stay overnight, this is warm now. It's about 75 degrees right now. An hour ago, this was in heavy frost. It gets very cold in the West at night. The space blanket will keep you warm, keep you from getting hypothermia. And I carry my own little, it's a Ziploc bag, waterproof, and I got some paper and some matches in case I have to start a fire. And I don't have a compass with me. I know this country very well, but if you're in a new area, if there's any question, have a topo map and a compass. And let me remind you, compass don't work at all if you don't know where you came from. If you don't know which way is up in the area, you're in trouble. You might as well throw the compass away. Before you leave, find out which way you're going. Are you going north? Then you got to go south to come back. And that's all that fanny pack has in it, and it'll take care of everything you need out here. A lot of problems guys have when they're bugling elk is maybe last year they went right out into the brush, bugled 2-3 times, and here come an elk. Walked right in 20 yards away. The guy shot it in the chest, fell over dead. He figures, that's all I got to do. Just bugle and the bull will come in and it'll fall over. But suddenly this year, that same guy's out there, and there might be 5, 6, 7 bulls answering his bugles, but they're not coming in. Well, what's he doing wrong? The first thing he says, I'm bugling wrong, I'm not doing it right. The reason is, he probably got a mature bachelor bull last year. He was hot, was in the middle of the rut. He came right in. This year, he may be into other types of bulls. There are 3 types of bulls. The immature bull, we call the raghorn, just 2.5 years old. The mature bachelor bull, he's fully mature. He's a big 5-point or 6-point. He's just not big enough to beat out the big herd bull. And of course, third is the herd bull. He's got the cows, he's got what he wants. If you think you're going to bugle at a herd bull who's standing 500 yards away and he's going to leave 16, 17 cows and come running into you so you can shoot him, no way. That's not going to happen. And an immature bull, you can hunt them real well early in the season before they've had some bad experiences. It's the first year they're in the rut, first year they're capable of mating, and they see a big old herd bull out there in the meadow and say, oh heck, he'll share a couple of cows, he's got 15 of them. They wander in there and start nosing a cow. Over comes the herd bull, and before he knows it, he's really being pummeled. And the herd bull will pummel that raghorn if he sticks around. After a couple of those experiences, raghorns are real timid. They'll answer, bugle, and even when you're very aggressive and challenged, they'll let you get 50, 60 yards away and move away. And see, that's the problem you're dealing with when you're hunting these elk. You got almost three different species of elk, if you want to call them, emotional species anyway. And there's different ways of hunting them. That immature bull, the best time to get him is when they first start bugling. He's really never bugled before. He's never made it before, and he's got these wonderful pangs of lust. It feels great. It's fun to bugle. And quite frankly, the last 4 bulls I've killed have been the raghorns, small 5 points. They said, hey, this is great. It's only the 3rd of September. I'm having a good time. Hey, here's one of my buddies bugling at me, and he's right in on me. I'm going to come and confront him, and we're going to have some fun. Maybe we'll clack antlers. Before he knows that he comes in, he's dead. And that's the best time to get the immature bulls. A little later on in the season, in the middle of the rut, after they've been run over by the big herd bull a couple times, they're a lot more timid. But you can get them to stop moving away from you if you just follow behind them and don't try and sound like a big bad bull. Just a few squeaks, just something like a raghorn would sound like, nothing real deep. And take it easy with the brush banging, because this is a macho thing among elk. And if he rakes his antlers a little bit, do it. I've killed several raghorn bulls this way. I followed up on them, not pushing them too hard, and I got within 40 yards, bugled, and then they did come in after a while, after they realized I wasn't going to run them over. And that's a good way to get the immature bulls. Herd bulls, everybody smiles when you say, what's the best technique of killing a herd bull? Once in a while, for no apparent reason, and I have killed one that way. I was 200 yards away from him, and he decided that I shouldn't be there. He left his cows and walked over and started raking his antlers for no reason. He had everything he wanted, but he didn't like me being there, and I killed him. The rest, I have gone on some terrible trips, chasing a herd bull for miles, running just as fast as I can, because this is good country right here for moving. I could run it through it. Elk can walk faster than I can run. And he'd stay 300 yards ahead of me. I'd run my guts out, and he'd still stay ahead of me. The best thing to do there when they're moving is look for a natural obstacle. If he's heading towards the head of a basin, rock, cliffs, quit bugling and just go as fast as you can. Just get right on the outside of the herd of cows, and they are a problem, because if they see you, they're going to go, that warning bark, and that to an elk means look out, and you can do whatever you want. But after they give one of them rough barks, forget it. So you get right up to the cows, and maybe he's only 60, 70 yards away, and you can't get closer because of the cows. And then you bugle. 2 things. You're in very close to him, and it's a natural obstacle for him to run away from, and you're close to his cows. And a lot of times when you get right in the midst of him like that, he'll come just to rout you. The only thing he's coming is just to get rid of you. He figures you're a raghorn bothering him. He's going to make one quick dash to get rid of you, and you can kill a herd bull that way. A lot of people have trouble bugling in elk. And I used to have a lot of problems in years past, but I've come up with a radically successful method for bow hunting bugling bull elk. As a result, I've killed 16 elk with my bow, because when I was having trouble years back, I began to doubt some of the accepted theories on bugling bull elk. When I first began in 1970, the theory was that if you could blow this bugle and perfectly simulate a bull elk, any bull elk would come running in. And I got to be pretty good with a bugle, but the bull still didn't come in. I got a few to come in, but more often than not, they were content to stay 200 yards away and bugle back and forth, until they just got tired of it and walked away. And I began to doubt the accepted theories on bow hunting elk. I took a trip to Yellowstone Park, and I spent a lot of time there observing elk. I found that real elk were bugling 200 yards away from each other and weren't calling into each other. And it made me wonder, just, what are elk doing? And from my stay in the park, I come to the conclusion that elk perform a rutting ritual. An elk will bugle, and what he's saying is, I'm just the biggest, baddest elk in the world. I am capable of beating any other elk up and mating every cow elk in the world. And it makes him feel good. He rakes his antlers and he feels good, just like a grouse drumming. That was the beginning of my understanding of the rutting ritual of elk. But I still had to figure out how to get in close to him. One afternoon was really the beginning of my understanding how to do it. There were 3 elk in a meadow. They were all happy to bugle. They were all 300 yards away and they weren't coming into each other. All of a sudden, one of the elk moved to the creek to get some water. In so doing, he invaded the domain of the other elk. And that violated elk just went crazy. He just did not want another elk invading his domain. It was kind of like a slap in the face. And he'd come tearing out of the timber and tearing up the ground. And of course, the other elk was totally oblivious of him. He just wanted to drink and got a drink and got up and left. And I thought to myself, if a typical elk will act that way when you invade his domain, maybe I could do the same thing with my bow. And that's what I did. As soon as I got from the park, I lived in Idaho, I went out. The first bull that bugled, I got him to bugle twice. He was interested. I quit bugling and I went right after him. He was about 400 yards away on a ridge, and I never stopped until I got like 60 yards away, until I couldn't get any closer. And then I confronted him. I challenged him. I said, listen, you're going to put up or shut up. You're going to turn tail and run, or else you're going to face me. And he did. He moved in a little bit and started raking his antlers. He was just incensed. The idea of another elk coming up there and challenging him. He started raking his antlers, and I moved in another 20 yards, and we were only 15 yards apart. And I was banging the brush, simulating a bull raking his antlers, and bugled, and he says, I got to see what this other bull's like. He come around the bush. I hit him at 10 yards, and that's the beginning of my successful career. I've told other guys about it. I mean, men from Wisconsin, never hunted elk, never heard elk. I said, hunt this way, and they've killed elk. And that's the way they hunt now, and they've been very successful.
The next morning, Mike locates from the same vantage point the identical bull he backed off of the previous morning.
You went down here. This is about the same time today. I'm going to give him a bugle and see if he's bugling. If he's bugling, I'm going to go down there after him. last hour and a half, I just had more exercise than I'd ever have in a health spa in about 10 years. We came up in elevation about 1,500 feet in about 45 minutes. Rock cliffs, everything. We saw the herd bull. We saw only 2 cows with him. We thought we had it made. Got back down there about 400 feet, and next thing you hear, there must have been 15, maybe even 20 cows with that bull. They were all around us. The amazing thing is that we could get that close to them. We were virtually surrounded by cows. And the bull was above us. This is a situation, one of the few situations when you can really get a herd bull. You're right in the middle of his cows. He thinks you're a challenger. We were ready any minute for him to come charging right down on us, but he didn't. Somehow, all the cows went over that way and herded up. We could hear them. We could see their rumps. A couple times I saw flashes of real tan. It was a herd bull. He went up here, circled back, and took his cows. Now you know why bull hunters often shoot cows. The guy really likes to get even with them. We could have really got into this herd bull. Those cows got in on us before we could get up to where we wanted to. We wanted to get up to this timberline elevation. Couldn't do it. Cows are right in the middle of us. This is the only thing you can do to herd bull is push him. We didn't get this bull. A couple of years back, I killed a herd bull using the same thing. Just push, 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 push. The problem with this was we don't have a natural barrier. All we've got is a nice flat ridge, which is a perfect escape route. He could really walk fast. He could walk maybe 10, 12 miles an hour. That's really fast. If it was a rock cliff, a road, an old logging area, places where elk don't normally like to go, he might have circled around here and came and met me. That's the breaks of bow hunting. It's just a tremendous, tremendous experience to have all them cows. It was almost like a chorus. It was just the most exciting thing. And that's the beauty of bow hunting for elk. It's great when you get that big trophy bull, and if you stay at it long enough, you will. But it's just excitement. It's the greatest. We left that herd bull back there. Almost all the sweat is dried on me now. But it's about 8:45. Early season elk hunting, when that sun starts hitting, gets close to it, the elk tend to climb up. This is the second bull we heard in this drainage. We're going to go down there and I'm going to bugle another couple times, see what's happening. Hopefully we're going to get in on him. We're ready to really go in and challenge this guy. We've been so busy bugling other elk, we really never get to this guy until 10 o'clock every morning. By then the sun's in here. I think this guy is just dying to get killed. I think we're going to get him.
Even though bright sunshine is filling the shaded basin, Mike is able to get the other bull to answer and decides to push him, ever mindful of swirling late morning air currents.
Oh wow, this bull is just 10 yards above me and up to my left. I moved in and challenged him. He's raking his antlers in the alders like crazy. I could see him through the alders. If the wind will just hold, he'll be moving through that opening right above me, less than 10 yards away in the sun. I'm watching his antlers. As soon as his antlers turn towards that opening, I'll come to full draw and be ready to shoot. As soon as his head gets in the open, that way he won't see me moving. Just as long as that wind holds, we'll do. Oh, I think he got my wind. Oh, he winded me, darn. Oh, I know as soon as he snapped his head to the right that he'd winded me and took off. Darn. I didn't think he'd even be able to bring him back, but I thought I'd try it. I think he's long gone. When you have that radical challenge, like I was telling you about, confront, I bugled him, and I'll bet it wasn't 10 minutes later. He was about 10 yards away from me, raking his antlers on some alder brush. The only place he could move was this little avenue. That's what I'm talking about. Get set up right. Get set up so that if he moves, he's going to be moving where you can shoot him. There's one problem that we ran into here, and there's nothing we can do about it. See the sunlight? air currents go down before the sun comes up. As soon as the sun hits it, heats the atmosphere. Then they'll start, eventually come up back this way. But what they'll do is they'll start doing a little bit of this, see? I want to go down, I want to go up. This is that period, see? There's some shadow, some sun. That's what we got into. When I started, that wind was just like this. That elk was dead. I mean, that elk was dead. I had him. Kneeling behind that alder brush, there's an avenue, 10-yard shot, used my 20-yard pin. He is dead. In my mind, he is dead. He's raking his antlers, and all of a sudden, of course, I always watch the wind. What's going on? What's going on? And one time, I even backed down about 5 yards to help myself. But then I could feel it. It was going down, it's going up, it's going down, it's going up. Then it was going like this. Well, when it's going this, we get a swirling effect in some of my scent. He's raking his antlers like this, and you can tell so much from their antlers. He's like this, and all of a sudden it's locked right in, and I knew something was wrong. I knew he'd winded me. I could see his antlers real good. He was a real symmetrical 5-point. Probably would have made the book at about 265, 270, something like that. Pretty good, but no world's record.
The next day, Mike, in another drainage, bugles and gets an answer from a squeaky-sounding young bull, commonly referred to as a raghorn, that he figures to be 2.5 years old. Look at this class of bull. Watch his body language and face. He wants no part. What he senses is a mature bull.
That's what you call a raghorn. Real small antlers on him, very unsure of himself. Almost sounded like a spike. He uked first, and then he uked a couple more times. I just knew for sure he wasn't going to come in. He's very unsure of himself. He's probably last year's spike. It's just his first year mating. Ain't no way he wants anything to do with another bull. You could just see the way he acted. He thought it was fun until we got close and he started moving off. We're probably not going to be able to get into him because of the steep side hill, but if we had caught him on more of a gentle slope where we could run in on him and confront him, we might have been able to get him to play around. So he played around for a while. If we could have moved in on him, but we were exposed. He was right out in the open. If we could have moved in on him while he was screwing around, we could have killed him. Now, when we heard him, first we come up about maybe 200 feet, and I come out into a little opening, and he was standing there maybe 70 yards away looking right at me. Unfortunately, it wasn't a big opening. All I could see was a movement in the trees with my camouflage, and I was confident that he wouldn't spook, and he didn't. He played around, bugled, yoked, and pranced around for a good 5 minutes. But he was on this open side hill, so you just couldn't get in on him. And that's just one of the things of the hunt. That was really fun. We got to see an elk, and we hunted the bachelor bull, the herd bull. Now this is the bottom of the pecking order. It's the very unsure teenager bull. Yeah, that's once in a while you can get him. Early in the season you can get him. In another situation, if we could have caught him up against a natural barrier, flatter ground where he could have moved faster, he couldn't have seen us, we might have got him.
Now let's change areas and travel to Lewistown in central Montana and watch Rob Hazelwood, accompanied by Dick Davis, harvest a bull by pushing him and his cows into a small dead-end coulee. His first shot misses. Even after being shot at and spooked, Rob's cow talk stops the bull. The second hits a tree. Later, Rob gets a chance at a second bull.
Best thing to do is just squat down and let him go.
Rob's rangefinder indicated a shot of 39 yards.
Drilled it dead center.
An inquisitive spike joins the wounded bull. A blood spot marks the arrow's entry point.
Okay. I waited about 30 minutes and I can see the tips of his antlers. And I know he's down and I'm ready to go in. I'm going to pace this off and find out exactly how many yards it was and then follow the trail up the hill. The spike actually went up and laid down right next to the bull when he laid down. It was a real good hit right in the bread basket. We're starting to pick up the blood right in here.
Rob cautiously approaches the downed bull, unsure of its condition. He doesn't want to spook a wounded animal.
Dick, I can see the antlers right up through the trees right here. I've waited a sufficient time where he's down. Well, the arrow didn't penetrate all the way through, and it didn't fall down much. It went out. Look how bent up it is. Oh, pretty nice bull. He's got an extra little point coming off of him right here. So for this late in the season, he'll do this year. Now the fun begins.
Mike Lipinski concludes our program with a candid and frank discussion about shot selection and hunting ethics.
The problem that a lot of sportsmen get into is after 3-4 days, 5 days sometimes, they haven't really got a shot. They are frustrated. And they told themselves before they started, no, there's going to be all sure shots. We're going to only take sure, close shots. And they get to seeing those cows out there 50, 60 yards. Finally, they get a bull. He's out there and he looks real close. I'll tell you something, a bull standing broadside in a meadow at about 75 yards looks close. I know guys who have put the 30-yard sight pin on an elk 70 yards away and shot about 50 yards short, and it's something that you do out of frustration. You want an elk so bad, you get a chancy shot, you lob arrows, and what you end up doing is you wound elk. Avoid it. People come to me and ask me, what's a suggestion on shooting? What should I do? They show me their bow. I give them a pair of wire clippers, and I said, here, what do I do with this? Well, they've got 20 yard, 40 yard, 50 yard, 60 yard. I tell them, clip 2 or 3 of those sight pins off. Your 60, your 50, and your 40. I really believe in close shots. We owe it to the game. Take close shots. When you're bugling bulls, we're not talking about hunting whitetails in the middle of a big field. We're talking about bugling bulls that are you're encountering up close. I've only killed one at 30 yards. That's because it was a herd bull and I couldn't get any closer because of the cows. The rest, 5 yards, 10 yards, 15 yards, couple 18 yards. When you're after bulls and rut, you can kill them, and then you can pick your shot. It's real close. You're not going to be hitting brush. You're not lobbing arrows where the arc of the arrow is going to be hitting limbs. You want one so bad, you take chances, and after you wound an animal, you feel so bad you want to sell your bow. And I know some people have done it because they make poor choices. Avoid it. Wait for the close shot. Decide what you can hit at. If you can hit at 30 yards in timber, that's your shot. I'm not talking 30 yards on a target range, 30 yards in the timber. There's a big difference. I can shoot pretty good group at 40 yards on a target range. But it's a different 40 yards out here. Remember that. 20 yards, 30 yards. I just really, and frankly, don't believe that any man is good enough to be shooting at elk at 50 and 60 yards. I just I flat don't believe it. I've seen too many experts doing it until they get out here. I know a guy who was a state archery champ until I took him out on a guided hunt. He couldn't hit elk at 20 yards. Well, I'd like to talk a little bit about proper attitude. You know, this any man who hunts elk in the high country like this, it's just a celebration of the season. The high country is so beautiful. Everything is burnt red and orange, and it's just a beautiful place to hunt. And the idea of getting frustrated because you don't kill an elk is really robbing the event. You're taking the fun out of it. And we've hunted about 3-4 days, and we've had some great experiences, and we come real close a couple times to killing elk, but we haven't got one. We had a hunt this morning that sounded like a cinch from the beginning. Got up in the high country, and guess what? Instead of the wind blowing down drains like it's supposed to, it was one of those days when it was swirling. Just after we'd hiked our guts out, the elk ran away, winded us. So a guy could get mad, throw his bow down, and want to quit, but I had a great time. And I think that it's real important to maintain a positive attitude when you're out here. Sometimes you do a lot of hiking, you never even get to see the elk. But stick with it. It's just remember, it's an enjoyable experience. It's not a chore.
The Rocky Mountain elk is America's premier big game animal. He's breathtaking to look at. The big herd bulls inhabit the most remote and beautiful country in the lower 48 states. Their mere presence is synonymous with wilderness. Mike Lipinski has given us a wealth of information he has learned through years of accumulated experiences. Our western elk herds are thriving, and harvesting a bull is within easy reach of every American hunter, whether hunting alone or professionally guided. We guarantee you, once you hear the deep-throated bugle of a dominant herd bull echoing through the alpine basins, you'll be hooked forever.